Here we go then, episode 2 of the video course report. Great feedback from the last one, so we'll carry on doing these things as long as people like them, and keep you informed this way. I think it seems to have worked well. Hopefully this wind proof microphone is working, because it's blowing a bit of a hoolie out here today. But it is the 24th of February. It's a really nice day today. 15.4 degrees I think it is. I'm going to put the stats for today on the screen. I think it's 15.4 degrees today. Lovely wind out here, drying the course out really nicely. And the ET rate for today so far, the evapotranspiration so far today is 0.8 millimeters. So evapotranspiration is effectively the loss of moisture from the ground in both the combined loss of both evaporation and transpiration, which is the plants effectively pulling moisture out of the ground and pulling the moisture through the plant to the leaves, and it's lost through their leaves, and that's how they transport nutrients around the plant. So evapotranspiration is a number we look at all the time to see how the course is drying out, how dry it is in summer, how much irrigation we need. And it's at this time of year when the ET rates start to kick in and the plants start to grow. This is when the course dries out. Despite rainfall, sometimes the course will dry out, any golf course will dry out, just based on the fact that the plants, in particular the trees, start to drink the water. They can move a huge amount of water out of the ground. So here you can see we've got James on the top dresser. He's just top dressed the 18th green. The greens, we've started the greens maintenance that we're starting a little bit early this year. You'll see it all looks its usual sort of messy self when we do this kind of work. So far the greens have been verti-drained. These were deep tine verti-drained, 225 millimeters deep. Plenty of heave, and this has really started to help dry the surfaces out and get some air back into the roots and the soil profile. This was has been followed by a second dressing, so this second dressing has gone on, and a little bit later on I'll show you the next process, which is a second run of spiking using R648. We're just going to wander over. I'll talk you through some of the work we've already done on tees. It's a really busy time of year, just as the weather starts to work for us. We've done some work on tees. They look a bit poorly at the moment. They look a little bit beaten up. It's quite normal when we do this kind of work. So this is the first tee that we're on, and the tees have all been verti-drained, just like we have the greens with the big old tines, and then we've scarified the tees, pulling out these lines of thatch that you can see. Lifts all the rubbish out the ground, and what that does is create areas for us to get new seed in. So these tees are next will be overseeded using a fine dwarf ryegrass, and then once they've been overseeded we'll follow that with some top dressing with a sand mix, 70-30 sand mix that we use, compost mix that is, sorry. And then we'll put on the spring feed, which is a 3-month controlled release feed, and that spring feed will go on, and tees will then grow nicely, recover really well from the winter. Obviously, because you guys have not been around, there's a lot less divots around at the moment, but we'll see the tees fall into really nice shape before you get back. They'll be in great shape, and I'd love to look forward to showing you a really nice stripy and well-maintained tee to kick us off here on the 1st. So here we are, I'm just walking towards the tractor on the 18th. You'll see there the 18th fairway, as I said, tried to show you earlier, has been verti-drained. I think this is the second of the fairways that we're tackling. They'll all be done. So just like on the greens and tees, the verti-drain, big tine, push that down, 225 mil into the ground, 15 degrees heave. I'll try and demonstrate how that works for you. Okay, so we're going to show you now what a verti-drain actually does. So we're replicating that with Garden Fork here. This is James, obviously. Smile, James. So what James is doing is showing you what a verti-drain does. So it tines go down into the ground. You can see how hard it is to push these in. Then it lifts the ground. I'll try and get a close-up on that on the next shot. So that is the heave that I talk about, that lift, and then it pulls out and then goes in. So hopefully that demonstration explains how the VertiDrain works, what it does. This is the machine itself, Adam there coming down the fairway, and that's the VertiDrain in action behind it. Just a quick shot there. I've got this big yellow thing in the sky behind me. Hopefully you can see that. Really nice to see. So it's a very, very pleasant day out here today. And the one thing I would note on fairways, we've got some work to do obviously. There are a few wet patches that we need to recover, but they're in really good shape. Really nice grass cover, and we'd actually planned to overseed all the fairways this spring. We wrote that into the budget and into our work schedules on the basis that the winter was looking really poor and wet. We won't need to do that. In fact, we'll be selectively working on the areas that need it. Most areas won't need it, which is great news. What I would do, just based on the previous video for the drainage proposal, is just go back to the wet area that I showed you on the second fairway. So I'll just turn this around, just try and reproduce what we did for the last one, but as you can see, this area, although still soft and a little bit squidgy, the surface water isn't coming up around my boots anymore. Real improvement in just a few days, and that's, as I say, the temperatures are on the rise. You can see the grass is coming up nicely, starting to grow. The trees are starting to open up, and it makes such a difference, and it's that sort of thing that makes the course dry out in spring. Another nice indication spring is here. There's an alder tree here, so these catkins are all out. It's starting to bud quite nicely. So this tree is now pulling moisture out the ground for us. You imagine that's only a small one, but the bigger ones, the amount of water they drink makes a huge difference. Okay, so having charged the length of the course, here I am now on the 16th to show you the next process on the greens. So just as a recap, they were sanded, VertiDrained, and then they were sanded again. And then what we're doing is we're following over with the Procore 648 Toro machine that we bought a couple of years ago. This is an awesome piece of kit, this one. And we're putting in a 16mm tine at approximately 50mm centres, and this one's running to a depth of about 100mm. And what this does, the deep VertiDrain is quite disruptive, lifts the ground quite a lot, and there's less holes, but they're at depth with quite a break in the soil structure. What this is doing is putting many more holes in the surface level where we want to open up, and then we'll work the sand into that. So far then, this green has had, the 16th green is still on, this green has had 2 tons of dressing applied, and if you look down you can see it's got to disappear. So there'll be another ton of dressing applied to this green as a minimum, just to get that surface that we always prepare for spring. And this is the bedrock of the greens for the season ahead. Once we've got this heavy work done early season, we keep topping up with light dressings that become more of a polish, working with the other equipment, particularly the turf iron, get the sward growing nicely, and that's what gives us that real nice polish. Allows the greens to be receptive, so you can throw your 7-iron in and it'll hold if you're that good a shot, which I'm most certainly not. But it creates these greens that hold the ball but actually run, and you know, we run our greens between 10-11 as standard through summer on the stimp meter. So on the greens then, the next job once the 648 is spiked is to brush. You can see over my shoulder James getting the turf iron out there. This turf iron's fitted with a brush, So the brush leads by pushing the sand into the holes, and then the turf iron produces a bit of a surface behind it. So the next job will be to give the greens their sort of spring feed, and then start the wetting agent program. We're all thinking about the wet winter we've just had, but a dry summer is inevitable and no doubt needs to be dealt with. So the wetting agent program will begin in the next 7 or 8 days as well. Okay, so I said that that was the last process for this program of works, but actually I'd forgotten. We've arranged to do an extra job this year, which is to bring in a machine called an Air2G2, something I'd like us to own actually when the budgets allow. So the Air2G2 is a pedestrian machine. I'm going to show you in a second. See it over my shoulder. And what it does, it inserts 3 probes into the ground. There's an onboard compressor, and as the probes go into the ground, the compressed air is exploded into the ground. So this is physically forcing compressed air into the ground. In terms of all other aeration, where we're trying to allow air into the ground by lifting and braking, this actually just forces compressed air into the ground, and obviously the release of that air will break up any pan layer and help ease all the compaction. I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So there we go, that's the Air2G2, and what you'll see is the 3 probes running into the ground, operated by Ian. The 3 probes go into the ground, the compressor on board then releases the air, and I'll show you what that looks like with a close-up. You can see that the ground is physically lifting where the compressed air is going in. So this is an unusual step for us, but what this is doing is really we're working in quite an intense close pattern with that machine, much closer than you might normally, and we're just forcing air into the ground to relieve the compaction and alleviate a lot of the pressure that we've seen on the greens from the very wet winter. Really intense program of works for greens, I'm sure you'll agree, and hopefully this video has given you a bit of an insight into what's going on now that spring has sprung.